Hello and welcome back to the channel. On this video, I'm going to talk about what is the most important thing when it comes to performing stand-up comedy. It's perception. What is the first thing the audience think about you when you walk on stage? If we can make material based around the first impression people have on you, that's going to be a recipe for success. You don't even need to directly call out what the perception or stereotype is, but your comedy needs to come from an understanding of how you are being perceived by the audience, and all of your opinions should come from around the arena of that perception. So that's what we're going to talk about in this video. We're going to talk about it in quite some detail, so I hope you really benefit from this. Let's get into it. So when you walk on stage, obviously it's just in the nature of people to have assumptions, perceptions about you. You do it to other acts when they walk on, and the whole audience will do it to you when you walk on. So if they decide they're comfortable with you, they need to decide if they're comfortable with you before you even open your mouth, right? So even if you come across like a person who's quite tough, that's perfectly fine. Even if they're not comfortable with you, by you getting there and making fun of it, either being the tough guy or woman, or either being a very silly fictional version of the opposite to that, that's all perfectly fine. So if you look young, you exaggerate it, you play into it, or maybe you're not the age that you perceive to be. So you see what I'm doing here? The perceptions are all very instant and basic. It's not a deep level of knowing you. It's not something abstract about you. This is all very basic first impressions, as in I would have on you in the first few seconds. So a good way of understanding this and making material about it is to do it to other people. When you're in your writing session, right, have one of your writing sessions out in public. When I wrote comedy, I always like to write comedy out in public, because if I ever needed any inspiration, all I have to do is look around for a few seconds and I can see a relationship or a person or a situation or an object or whatever, and I can, okay, I can make fun of this. So I always think it's good creatively to write out in the open. But if you look around when you're out in the open and you're writing comedy in a cafe or whatever bullshit place you're sitting in, just notice how many assumptions you will have instantly upon looking at anybody, and just jot them down. And so obviously you know your own stereotypes, but it's good to write comedy based on other people's stereotypes too. You could write an entire 5 minutes based on 3 stereotypes about one person you see walking by for a mere few seconds. And so really what the audience is doing is they're giving you the material in which you're going to connect best with them. They don't even have a choice. They just have the assumptions about you. And if you can highlight the same assumptions, it's not rocket science, it's going to be the same assumptions, because you're going to pick the most obvious ones. If you're very old, well then that's the assumption people are going to have on you. So how are you going to come about that? Are you going to be actually the old character on stage and get the material out of that? Or actually are you going to pretend that you're very young at heart and get the material out of that, and that your body doesn't fit in the... your look doesn't fit in the body that you feel, and there's a lot of material there. But we're getting it out of the assumption. We're not coming on stage looking like one very specific thing and then immediately going and talking about art science and the time you were studying it. And it's like, no, well, hang on a sec. We need to set some ground rules. We need to set the premise. You need to get to the same area I'm going with my assumptions about you. If you can meet me there, then that's going to be perfectly fine. So if you ignore it, it's not going to work out. It should be called out in the first 10 to 15 seconds of your set, or sooner. If you want, you can come on stage with a few jokes, but I would still say the jokes at the top of the show should be in the same arena, the same style as the original perception. The sooner you can get to the punchline, or the sooner you can set up a premise of where the audience is going naturally, well then that's going to be absolutely a recipe for success. And so how we do this is literally in your writing, I want you to write down as many stereotypes as you possibly can about yourself. 20, 30, 50, it doesn't matter. Keep going. Because obviously, you're not going to go on stage and say all of these. It's obviously just too much. But what you are going to do is you're going to pick the most obvious ones. Usually the most obvious, easiest ones are the first 5 you write about. And then the ones that you have the most about to say of those 5, or however many there are, well, that's where your natural, that's what you should be talking about on stage 90% of the time. And all of the transitions that come from that should be still based around the idea of the perception, around the idea of the assumption people have about you. So an example I can give is my opening joke used to be about the fact that I used to that I drink a lot of Guinness, that I throw the first punch, and that I always feel ashamed. And so obviously I'm not giving you the context of the joke, but I just want to highlight the 3 stereotypes I have previously used. Not all the time, but they are some I've previously used. And the reason is because I'm from Ireland, and Irish people have a reputation for drinking, and have a reputation for fighting, and have a reputation for the Catholic guilt. And so therefore, when I said the joke about it at the top of the show, it got a laugh. But then I went into longer pieces of material, and I just did the first stereotype and painted a bigger picture of the stereotype about the drinking. And I had all the bits of material I have about drinking. Some of them you wouldn't even think are connected to drink, but I had a transition. It was always around the premise of that stereotype. Even if the topic technically wasn't there, I linked drink to it in some way. So the stereotype connected me to an external thing. And I moved on to the second stereotype. If I wanted to say something that was out of field of that, I always connected it to the second stereotype, which was fighting. And in the third stereotype of Catholic guilt, this would have been in a long set now, because you can see the more you do this and the more you paint a more vivid picture and more jokes follow, and then all your transitions from then are still connected to it, the set just becomes very big. There's a lot of body to it and a lot of humor to it. Of course, we're always keeping them laughing as consistently as possible. That's the king. So that's going to wrap up the video. I want you to always write from a point of view of the stereotypes you have, even if you don't want to address them directly to the audience. I want you to always keep in mind, this is how I come across, so therefore my comedy should always be in this key. It should always have this coloring, this filter system around it, because if this is what they think of me, if these are the stereotypes they think of me first, this is the way I should approach creating comedy around any of the ideas and situations that I bring up the premise to in their mind. All right. That's going to be it from this video. I hope you've benefited from it. I cannot stress it enough. I feel for me, it's the most important part of all stand-up comedy. It's going to be the secret to your writing, and I hope you enjoyed it.